Happening. HCPX, we are live. Calix Boxing, D Style Boxing. It's been a while since we did it. HCPX, we are live. It is Hump Day,
We
Wednesday,
just did one last week. I mean,
or is it Is it Thursday? Is today Thursday?
yeah.
Wait, is it Wednesday
No,
or
it's
Thursday?
Wednesday. It is
Oh, okay,
Wednesday.
it's Wednesday. All right,
We
I'm
just
good.
did an ACPX 6 days ago, Cal. So what's going on
That's
right now?
true. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm all messed up. So I see the numbers coming up. So y'all make sure to hit that like button as y'all come
That's how you
in.
know he's a dad. His days are long. His days
Oh my god,
are.
they all turn into one day. They all
Yeah.
turn into one day, and all the weekdays seem the same. So that's what it
Yeah.
is. Hit that like button as y'all come in. Introduce yourselves as you come in. Leave comments, all that good stuff. These style. I don't know what you. I don't know if you heard.
Mm.
Today it's being reported, Dan Raphael, that the rematch clause will not be exercised from Errol Spence Jr. Um, First of all, what's your initial reaction of that? Are you shocked?
Yes.
Are you shocked? Are you shocked?
I just gave you my initial yes.
I know, right? I know,
Like,
right?
talk about a fight nobody needs to see. Outside of Errol Spence fans that are want to sell this whole like bravado, like yeah, we're gonna get it back in blood,
We're
and
gonna
like
get him. New weight.
yeah,
We're gonna get him.
he wasn't right, something was wrong, like whatever you want to say.
There was protruded
Sometimes,
ribs.
we just gotta move on, bro. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Sometimes we just gotta move on, bro. So sometimes you gotta get up, put your suit back on, and say, you know what? That
I'm
dude
a
whooped my
broken
ass,
man.
but I'll be back later. Like, let me just
I'm
say
a
this.
broken man right now.
Oh
I'm
man,
a
he's a
broken
broken man,
man. I was broken. I was broken. So
bro.
I got to
It
move
was
on.
a domination. It was like Gotti Floyd levels of a beatdown. Like that's how bad the beating was.
Yeah.
This wasn't like he outboxed him for 12 hours. No, he beat the living shit out of him and knocked him down several. It's probably worse than the Gotti beating because Gotti wasn't even knocked down.
It was worse. It was
So,
worse.
so like it was an abs. If no one knew Errol Spence was and no one knew Errol Crawford was, and they're like they just heard it as a big boxing man. Okay, I'm gonna give boxing a chance. That's why I don't watch boxing. All these mismatches. I'm done with this sport again. And they would have turned out the TV back off. That's what it is. I'm just talking to someone who wouldn't know any better, right? They would just assume, here we go again. They probably, well, where do they find this dude at? Okay, they're always doing these mismatches. That's what the perception would have been. We know better because we follow the sport. But it was a beatdown. It was one sided. I always had my doubts that the rematch was going to happen because the movements of Crawford showed me that. When Crawford said, "Oh, we'll just do it at 154," I'm sorry, he insisting he will do it at 147, but then he's talking about fighting Canelo 168.
Hmm.
It kind of showed me it's like he's kind of helping you out here, Spence. He's trying to give you the yow. You know, he's trying to tell you, he's trying to leave you like a graceful exit. Like, well, I wanted to fight Crawford again, but I guess the champ doesn't want to do it at 154. I got to move on. And he was giving you an opportunity here. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
Hmm.
Less and less rematches, okay? Less rematches. Don't listen to Timothy Bradley that you need to get a rematch clauses or you're a horrible manager.
Yeah.
We don't want to listen to that advice. We don't want rematch clauses.
It's just another obstacle.
It's just another obstacle. Let rematches be what they were in the good old days.
Hmm.
The pride of the fighter will kick in and say, I want that one back, but it was a close one, so let's run it back. That's what rematches are for. This is the second rematch, by the way, that the public at large didn't want and didn't get. The other one was Bivol versus Canelo. I think, even though I don't necessarily agree with this, but I understand why people feel this way at the same time. They just didn't feel like Canelo could really do anything else against Bivol. Um, I think he would. I don't know if he would have won, but I think he would have performed better against Bivol in a rematch. But sometimes moving on is the best option. Bivol moving on to fight Beterbiev for undisputed is the better option. Canelo moving on, potentially fighting, I guess Crawford now or Benavides is the better option for everybody. Everybody wins.
Yeah, and you had a bunch of Canelo fans telling him to move on from Bivol, right? And he ultimately listened. I think it took some dragging, but he listened and said, "All right, move on." And I'm gonna talk about rematch clauses in a minute, but to this comment, Chauncey, I would say go to BDA Boxing. Shout out to them, and they do a good job of covering fan bases before and after fights, before and after big fights. And if you want sort of the mood of the hardcore Spence fan base on Twitter and content creators on YouTube, go there to see the reactions before and after fights and how they've been dealing with it. So I think it's more prevalent than you think. And I would also say to this, we are not giving Zoo versus Thurman mismatch a pass. We talked about how it's good for both fighters at this point in their career because at this point, Zoo needs to stay on his dates. And they've been begging for dates. And they're gonna do the proper thing of taking who is the biggest name or who is the best known fighter, who is the best opposition available to me at this time. So would you rather him not fight or fight? It comes down to that. And if Thurman is going to stick around, he's got to stick around as a gatekeeper opponent. That's the healthy process if he's going to stick around. So it's good for both. But what we said is it's a mismatch. And also what we both think Thurman's going to get destroyed, right? It's a mismatch. We called that out. And we've also said we don't think it's a pay-per-view level fight. So I don't know what people want from us. I don't know. But we're calling it like we see it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's going on.
We've talked to this about this with Glenn, both off and on the
I'll
record.
tell you what it is. I'll tell you what it is. Look, guys. I get it. Okay. I understand that Calix and I have been talking very highly of Tim Tszyu, especially last year. I think it's warranted, right? Right. It's very, but I just want to make sure people understand this. We've also been accused of being harsh on the fight, but giving what's the fight people said that we're giving a pass to? Like, but you guys are gonna let Canelo fight Jamal? Like,
we're not giving a pass on that either.
We're not giving anybody a pass on anything.
We both hate that fight. I mean, I've said that 27
Yeah, but
times.
I guess what I'm saying is, how can we be accused of both things?
I don't know.
Like, how are we? Y'all want to trash the Zoo fight, but I bet you won't say anything about what Canelo's going to do, right? Like, I guess the thing is this. I get it. I get that you don't like the fight, Chauncey. I don't like the fight either. Like, I don't know, like, what other way. No me gusta la pelea tampoco. I just said it in Spanish too. Like, I don't know what other way to say it. You know what I mean? But you have to understand the nuances of what we're saying at the same time, right? So Amazon needed a date ASAP. For about a good amount of opponents fell through. They couldn't make the fight happen. The Thurman fight was the fight that they ended up making, right? Because they needed a fight already, right? Tszyu was like, yo, I'm ready for March. Thurman said he's ready for March, and that's the fight that they did. There was other fights that were either turned down or the opponents priced themselves, right? And I clearly said, even in the interview, like, you don't think this would have been better if it was just free Amazon, right? But keep in mind, I'm talking to the manager of Tim Tszyu. Like, he doesn't even handle that stuff, and he openly said he has no clue how the fight's even going to do on pay-per-view here, right? Like, it is what it is. Like, from the Australian side, they're going to make their money over there. Like, it is what it is, right? But what I can say is no one likes the Tim Tszyu fight. It's a very unpopular fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think people understand that. I even pointed out that the guy's been inactive for 25 months. That was talked about. So that's all I'm saying. So there is no passes of anything. What we do, what me and Calix are consistent about, not that I want to speak for him, but when guys are active, right, like Tim Tszyu, of course, the criticism, right, is not as harsh because they're active fighters. So I'll give you an example. When Canelo fought Yildirim, I didn't get on Canelo about it. Why? Because he was going to come back in 2 months and fight Billy Joe Saunders. So when people were like, oh, but he's fighting Yildirim. Why is he fighting Yildirim? Like whatever, right? Well, he's going to come back and he's going to fight Billy Joe, one of the other champions. And he fought Callum Smith 2 months before that, right? Yeah. In Tim Tszyu's case, we're not going to see him, right? We're not going to see the dude like for another year or something. No, we're going to see him in a couple of months. And Nando, it depends on what you believe, brother. Do you believe that Lubin didn't price himself out? Do you believe the side that one guy says, "Oh, we were just waiting on the date," and the other guy said we never had an offer? Are you going to believe that side? I'm just going to put that out there right now to you. I just don't believe that the Tim Tszyu side is lying about Lubin. I don't. I just don't. I'm just going to be honest with you. But I know you like. What is it? Is it, you want me to say like what like all I'm going to say is this. Could it be that they were told he outpriced himself, or he was asking for too much money, but PBC would rather have another name? That's possible, right? But the thing is, we don't know. Okay, we have the fight that we have. It's not the greatest fight in the world. The fight is getting shredded by fans, up and down, right? This chat is filled with people shitting on the fight all the time. We're not censoring you guys. We're not telling you not to express your opinions. We're not deleting like other channels do around here, right? So you guys have every right to express your opinions, right? But and keep on coming if you want. But all I'm going to tell you is Tim Tszyu will be back mid-year, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a better opponent than Keith Thurman. That's what I will say.
And look, that's one thing I'm gonna defend myself against. I let stuff go, but the next day after that fight was announced, I came on here and shredded. I think the day of, before we even did the interview, that's when it was. I shredded that fight. I said that's a terrible rollout, and that doesn't belong on pay-per-view. And once it's on pay-per-view, it becomes something different. And I gave you the 2 points of view, the viewpoint of the manager, business side, and why it makes sense and all that stuff, and then the fan side. And that's what we worry about here. And I'm going to defend myself against accusations like that. This channel is not finessing anybody or anything. It's not happening. Okay. But also to wrap it up, we talked about Glenn and we asked him specific questions, and we talked to him off air about this stuff. And I asked him specific questions, and I want to make sure that he knows that activity is valued, and you're not going to wait for anybody. And he expressed his concern about going into the American market. And the American market is very much different. And I've explained why. These fighters are pampered. These fighters are asking for too much money. These fighters are not active, and their managers and promoters are super picky about what fights they take. And he expressed his concern, but he also gave you a solution of how he handles business to sort of navigate that. And he says, I got a handful of names, and we're dealing with all these, and we're dealing with the next fight already. So Keith Thurman happened to be on the list, and we went through names before we landed on Keith Thurman. But one thing we're not going to do is not be active in. Shout out to Steve Kim. We talk about boxing, text on the phone, all that stuff about boxing. And one thing he told me last week, we had a conversation when this news was breaking. He's like, they need to understand that they have to stay active. Do not wait for anybody. Get your dates and do not wait for anybody. Australia, wherever, do not wait for anybody. Keep it moving, no matter who it is. And stuff's going to start to fall over time if they continue to do that. And they're moving the right way. In that way, I don't know what else to say, man. But people are talking about Kevin Cunningham. I want to say something about that in a minute. But before we do that, just to give my thoughts on the rematch clause not being exercised. Rematch clauses need to go away. They're obstacles in the way. They add to the complexity of negotiations, which should be simple. And this is for everybody. By the way, I need to make this clear, obviously. Even for Canelo, we don't agree with rematch clauses. Even for Tim Tszyu, we don't agree with rematch clauses. Rematch clauses need to go away no matter who it is. And we talked about, again, weight class business needs to be addressed. So if Canelo's not going to fight the fight at 168, he needs to be stripped. Look how easy this is, right? But rematch clauses need to go away. And the market needs to dictate if a fight is run back. And the market obviously dictated that this fight doesn't need to be run back, so much so that the rematch clause just drops. There are people in Errol Spence's ear telling him, look, dude, we can't do this financially. We can't do it. We can't do it financially. And on top of that, you got cataracts. Like we can't do it, bro. Like you were just beat down We can't do it. There's no way we can financially make this fight. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Look,
And that's where we're at.
if it was a more competitive fight and there was demand, because you know, Calix, there's a thing called basic economics that a lot of the for some reason guys that talk about business, yeah, I'm a businessman, I know about the business, the boxing, blah blah blah, right? Like a lot of those guys, they never talk about demand, bro.
Mm-hmm.
The word demand. If there was demand for the fight would have happened. In business, in the economy, in economics, there's a thing called demand. If there's no demand for it, a rematch clause causes fights to happen that there's no demand for. Okay? If there was demand for it, there will be return customers that would have bought the fight and the fight would have happened. But there was no
Yeah.
demand for it. It is
Mm-mm.
what it is. There was a one-sided fight. It's time for both guys to move on. Shout out to Evan Sobers, by the way, strength and conditioning coach of Genie Fuchs and
Oh, shout out to him.
Regis Progress. Yeah, shout out to you.
Shout out to him. I wanted to put this up real quick because I saw this come across yesterday on Twitter. Kevin Cunningham, boxing trainer. Somebody mentioned him in the chat. I'm not sure what he said about Tim Tszyu. I mean, we'll address that at some point. But I've been in the business of boxing almost 35 years. I've never seen so many young top level fighters this frustrated. The days of pissing on fighters and trainers' heads and telling them it's raining is over. Um, I've heard stories about boxers now being frustrated about not getting dates. I'm sure there are a lot of PBC fighters in particular that are looking around and saying, wait a second. I thought maybe this was going to be multiple platforms. How in the world are they going to fit all of us into the plan when it's just Amazon Prime and they only have so many dates with no budget? How is this going to work? And I'm sure they're asking questions on the back end, and I'm sure they're not getting answers, or they're getting finessed, right? And they're not accepting those answers because I'm sure at this point they're like, "Where's my date? Where's my date? Where's the minimum you promised me? What is going on? What is going on?" So
Mm.
when I read something like this, it tells me that this reset that you've been talking about, and we knew it was coming at some point, is starting to take place, right?
A
And
little bit. Yeah.
and we've talked about how the top level fighters are going to be taken care of, right? They're going to be taken care of in this new market. They're going to be fine. They'll be fine. It's the mid level down that's going to be left behind. They're going to be left behind because they're going to be the guys begging for dates and when am I going to fight? And then when they do fight, there's no more ESPN2 Friday Night Fights. There's no more Showbox to showcase these guys. And a lot of them are locked down to specific networks. And say a PBC fighter, Showtime's gone. And not only is Showtime gone, you took Showtime and you're going to copy and paste it on Amazon Prime. But the problem with that is they're only copying, pasting the Showtime pay-per-view level. They're not copying and pasting. Showtime Championship Boxing is going away for the most part.
Mm.
Showbox going away. So all those fighters that would normally perform and get main events on that level, that's gone. It's gone. On top of HBO Boxing, gone. It's gone. So how do you take care of the fighters that you've promised them the world and they're just sitting there and they're going to be on the shelf? I think something's going on. I think we're starting to see this reset take place. Do you agree with that?
I do think that before something gets better, it's got to get worse. I'm a believer in that, and I think we've been through, like, we've been experiencing the worst the last couple of years, right? Um, Last year we saw like this last kind of attempt at trying to save the product with Showtime, and but they really left Showtime like no argument really to keep it around. Like, you know what I mean? Um, or anyway with the new owners and Paramount to keep boxing around. I think they looked at it and they said, "Yeah, we don't want to deal with this. This is a headache."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Look, I worked for Dish for many years, um, and we would get there was some meetings that I was in, and there was already word that AT&T was gonna, basically buy out Time Warner, and there was already kind of talks about HBO doing away with sports, and in this case, it's boxing. The truth is, in the HBO situation, the new owner or the new owner, AT&T in this case, the CEO looked at it and said, whatever they looked at when it comes to boxing, they didn't like it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they said, we don't want to deal with this. We're done. Like that's it. You know what I mean? And HBO just had a monster year themselves. They had like a Golovkin Canelo fight that did over 1 million buys. I mean, it was the second one, by the way. So they were having a pretty decent year. But at that point, the budget had already shrunk so much, by the way. Even with that shrunken budget, they looked at it and said, it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this keeps happening to the sport of boxing. Right. People keep looking at it and saying, some new set of eyes come over that have no vested interest in boxing. And they say, we don't want to deal with this. And then they get rid of it. Right. It happened again when Paramount purchased or got the merger anyway with the CBS Corp, which owns Showtime, right? The same thing kind of happened. They looked at it and they said, this boxing thing, we don't want to deal with it. Like that's what it is. It's not that they don't think they could. Maybe like I guess they're not interested in the challenge of making it work. In other words, it's not worth it to them, right? So they'll rather let it go and hey, maybe somebody else can make it work, and that's all it is, right?
Yeah.
That is a problem. And why is it a problem? Inflated purses, which we've been talking about here for years. Inflated purses have been a problem for years in boxing. Now, why is inflated purses well, D-style Calix, you're anti-fighter. You don't want these guys to get paid? No, we do want these fighters to get paid. But when you start paying fighters so much money that they have nothing to show for it in terms of revenue coming back, butts and seats, ratings, etc. Right? Once that happens, and then fighters have higher the fighters are expecting to pay here, and you're willing to offer here. There's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Ruiz, why is he inactive? Why Andy Ruiz believes that since he's fought for the world title before for 7-8 million, he deserves that's where his skill is at. He just believes that, right? You heard him say it. Hey, I fought here. You pay me this, and you want to offer the same? No, now you got to pay me here. Like that's what he did, and that's what these fighters do. So like all I'm saying is, I think the
Your
market,
impressions are phenomenal.
the market is going to self-correct itself, Calix.
Right.
That's what's happening. Right? Maybe 2-3 years ago, Lubin does get the fight. Maybe PBC is willing to fork out the money to pay Lubin and fight Tim Tszyu.
True.
Right? But maybe now, to Nando's point, maybe now they just don't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So now it's like, we're not interested. And Cunningham could say all he wants. The fighters are frustrated. I'm sure they are. The fighters, more than ever, I'm sure they are. But what's gonna have to happen is that the new crop of fighters, a new breed of fighter coming in, right? The big wigs, the people in charge, the promoters, they need to do you gotta think long term, not just short term, right? People always criticize Aaron when he's not willing to pay somebody something because he doesn't feel they're worth that amount of money, right?
But the managers in particular, right on the front end, they have to tell these young, talented fighters, don't lock yourselves into long-term deals with networks and promoters.
If it was up to me, bro,
that's what Bill Haney understands.
Yeah, like if it was up to me, these fighters would like Progress. He signed, what is it, a 3-fight deal?
3-fight deal.
With the first fight right away, by the way, he immediately fought in New Orleans, and then he got that fight.
He was promised 3 fights within 13 or 15 months. Promised three fights.
There you go. Yep. So like he did 3. He didn't do like, he's not sitting on the shelf. You know what I mean? He's fighting. And they got him to fight.
Yep.
What happens in the ring, happens in the ring, but he got the fights.
Yep.
And he got paid. Right? And he's staying active, right? So at the end of the day, inactivity, I think, is a symptom of a bigger problem, right? And we got to go to the root of it, Cal. We got to take it out by the root, right? And that's the business model of PBC. It has not been a good business model for years already. For years. If it was, it wouldn't have so many failures with so many networks.
Yeah, and I want to I'm glad you brought that up because another thing, Inoue versus Nery is official
Yeah.
for May 6th, Tokyo Dome, which it's unfortunate that I can't put him on a pound for pound list, right? Because that's a Monday. And I've been told I can't put a fighter fighting on Monday and Tuesday on my pound for pound list. But
Yeah, it's
um
ridiculous.
but anyway, Tokyo Dome, 55,000, big fight. He's going to fight Luis Nery, and it should be a fun fight. But the reason I bring that up, other than it's newsworthy and it's a good thing, is another fighter staying active against the
Mhm.
best opposition available to him in the weight class. He's not waiting around, he's sticking around. But it just goes to show you with some fighters, we have movement, and that's good. Um, Look at last year, July, big fight week, the biggest fight week of the year is you had Inoue fighting Fulton Jr. and you had Bud fighting Spence. And what has happened since then? They both put on great pound for pound performances. We're debating who's number one, who's number two. We know they're 1 and 2. Who's number one, who's number two? We're having these arguments, right? Who had the performance of the year? Who was fighter of the year? It all came from that week. But
Yep.
what has happened since that week is Inoue fights in December. He announces his next fight within 2 months. And then within a month of that fight, he already announces his next fight for May. So since that week, he has fought twice. He's going to fight twice before Bud fights again. And I'm hoping we get an announcement from Bud before Inoue fights again, because if we have two Inoue fights before Bud even makes an announcement, that is not good. But it once again shows us that, and look, certain fighters um, have more leverage, right? Canelo, Inoue may have more leverage with where they go, and then they can get things done quicker, right? All of that stuff. But a lot of that comes from decisions these fighters have made earlier on in their career to be more free, um, demanding activity instead of getting in the weeds as far as low minimums and stuff like high minimums and stuff like this. And now it's paying dividends. Now it's compounding over time because these fighters can stay active and other ones can't. But on top of that, we see once again, and I know people are going to call us PBC haters from this episode, but the PBC is taking too long. I don't understand why. What was it now? August, September, October, November, December, January. We're 6 months, over 6 months removed from the fight. And we're just finding out officially that there's not going to be a rematch. Just finding this out. And on top of that, this dude just gets cataract surgery 6 months after the fight. Why is this stuff taking so long to develop over there? I don't know. But it just goes to show why certain fighters get to certain points and then others, it's more stagnant, right?
Now they've run. There's something key, Calix, that they don't have anymore. Is that they don't have that all those investors making it rain on the
Mm-hmm.
promises of Al Heyman. They don't have that money anymore.
Yeah.
So like you've hit your credit card limit, L. Like you know what I mean? You can't even use the credit card anymore. Like you have late fees now. You have overage fees now. Like, and you're having to pay for those fees. So they got that's why they're doing these pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what's happening, right? Dude started. He was riding high when he had the credit card. You know what I mean? Oh, look at this. He just maxed it out over the years
Yeah.
and had nothing to show for it. Like, he's been maxing it out, Calix, and paying a minimum payment for how many years now? Like that's all they've been doing. So now that they're like, Lubin's like, oh, come on now, you got the credit card? Like, we don't got nothing no more, bro. We don't got we got nothing, Lubin. You know? We don't decline. Like, you know what I mean? And just like us, right? Us, you and I, Cal, we have credit, right? So what we spend, how we handle our credit cards, any loans we take out, uh, payments we make to services we have, whatever it is, we have a credit, and we all have a credit. Everybody understands credit because you're all adults here and you know what credit is. Al Heyman has a terrible credit rating when it comes to boxing, bro. In the boxing business, they look at his credit rating and they're like, man, Bounce TV, Spike TV, ABC, CBS, Fox Sports, FS1, Showtime. Man,
Yeah.
we don't like. No, sir. Decline. Right? Al Heyman's trying to get a new credit card, Calix, and no one's giving it to him. Like they're not even giving him one of those like get your credit back up $300 credit cards.
He does.
You know, like those first.
My boy Christian, who goes to all the fights, shout out to him. He says it's a GoFundMe business model, and it is. It's just a GoFundMe business model. Um, I don't know if you caught this clip on Twitter earlier. I don't know from how long. I don't know if this is recent or it's from a while back, and it doesn't matter when it was because I know his mentality is the same. Shout out to best women's boxing show, Cynthia Conti. She's great, but she was interviewing Leonard Ellerby. Once
She's
again,
all right. She's all right.
I don't know when this was. Don't hate it. Don't hate on Cynthia. Don't hate. But she's doing an interview with Leonard Ellerby, and I didn't catch if there was a follow up question to this or not, but I hope there was. But he's mentioning he's got the magic sauce. You know, he's studied this
Right.
stuff and he's mastered it. He said he's
Oh, okay.
mastered it. He's mastered the
Sure.
pay per view market. But what he knows from the pay per view market, and this is actually true, that you only have about 200,000 hardcore boxing fans in America, which is sad because if you look at the overall market in America, to say that you only have a market of 200,000 is a sad
Of
state
diehards, I would say. Yeah.
of diehard. And it shows how the market has been shrinking in America drastically. And it mirrors what's going on in the NBA. It's much smaller in the NBA, but the same problem. The market in America for the NBA is shrinking drastically, but universally it's growing. The same thing in America. And I think that has a lot to do with why they're going to take takeovers to the UK, which is, once again, it highlights sort of the talking out of both sides of the mouth coming from that camp, right? They talk about they don't care about belts, but they fight for the belts. And on top of that, and they market him as caring about the belts. And then at the same time, Mark, if you're not doing it in America, you're not doing it. And they're going to take him over to the UK. But what stuck out to me about this is he mentions 200K, but I want someone to ask him, why is the number only 200K? Because it wasn't that number 5 years ago. It wasn't that number certainly 10 years ago. It wasn't that number 15, 20, 30 years ago. This number keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So I
Yep.
want someone to ask him why that is. Why that is.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you he's going to point out alibis, he's going to come out with all kind of excuses as to why this number is diminishing. And one of the excuses he may use is a contact sport. And look, people don't like they're putting their kids in contact sports. Look, football is growing in America. And on top of that, UFC is exploding in America at the same time. So you cannot use that as an excuse. I know why the reason is, but I want someone to ask him, why is this market diminishing?
I think there's a lot going on. Shout out to Evan Sober, by the way. Says Mexican people carry the load in this country, paying for the sport. I think the Mexican fan base is carrying the sport. And I think a lot of pundits out there, man, like, nobody's saying pander to the Mexican crowd or kiss the Mexican crowd's ass, but don't talk down to them. Like, is that too much to ask? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a basic. Don't do what you wouldn't do to. Like, it doesn't get done to anybody else. It's crazy, bro. But here's the thing. I want to kind of touch on this, and I think this is very important. You guys got to listen to this, okay? The popularity of boxing as a sport has dropped dramatically. All you have to do, and I would challenge every single one of you listening to me right now, okay? Look, I'm a very, very proud original of the YTBC, okay? I don't really associate it with that now because it's turned into something else now. But when I talk about the YouTube boxing community, I'm talking about, the late 2000s, when a group of us got here. Callis came on a little shortly after that. BB was on about a month or two before me. There was Blood Boxing. There was others, right? They came on here. Yeah. What were we doing? We came on here because all we wanted to do was talk boxing with somebody.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to the bar and talk boxing. I couldn't go to when I get my hair cut. My freaking barber didn't know shit about boxing. Like they knew about the
we were in the room by ourselves talking to ourselves about boxing like crazy people because we had nobody to do it with. We were we're probably the original people, and keep your thought, but probably on Dan Raphael's Friday Chat or something like that, or Max Boxing, because we had nowhere else to go, right? And then YouTube
We
gave us a
were.
voice.
And we came on here. We just all it was us talking about. That's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I met Calix. Like it's just hey, you like boxing too? Shit, like we're not unicorns. Like we exist out here. You know what I mean? Like we got to talk to people, and then we started doing Robodo radio shows, and that's how we started doing live shows together. And that is what it was from the very beginning, right? So what I'm trying to say is this. Bro, a lot of those channels that went out of the way to do that, they're not around anymore. A lot of them have told me, bro, I don't even watch boxing no more. I'm done with the sport. I don't want nothing to do with it, right? And it not to sound dramatic, but it breaks my heart. Like it's like this sport broke people that genuinely loved this sport, and all they wanted was just the best to fight the best. That's all they wanted. They just wanted to see the best fight. They didn't want to wait for it to be marinated because it makes business sense, and they don't like hearing about that. They don't want to be told why they need to wait. Right?
Yeah.
They just say, you know what? I'm done. I have a million other things I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I could spend time with my son. I could go out fishing. I could watch other stuff. I could watch MMA. I could just stick to football. There's a million things from other sports that deliver. And they don't need to wait around for anything and get lectured to. Because that's all we get from these people in the boxing business. Lectured, talked to, told to, right? Blamed. You get blamed. Like we get blamed, Kelly. It's our fault. Oh, it's your fault that boxing losing popularity. The hardcore, it's your fault. It's our fault. We're the only ones still around. What the fuck are you talking about? What are we doing here? Like, at the end of the day, the people that are still around are the only ones still around. Like, I don't get, like, when people say things like, oh, boxing fans are the worst. I wish they would just go away. Then what are you going to do? Like, no one's going to watch.
You're terrible for the sport. You're terrible for the sport.
Another thing I could tell you, look, Calix, do people steal boxing? The short answer is yes, okay? But people steal all the sports. Like, the most pirated sport in America, by far, is football, NFL, and college. By far, and then the close second, well, not close, but still the second, is basketball. Yes, people illegally stream boxing, right?
Yeah.
But to use that and say, oh, that's why boxing is a toilet, the hardcore that's stealing everything. Actually, no. I know a lot of hardcores that say, I want to support my sports. I don't even like the fight, but I'm going to buy it. This is the only sport where the fans say things like, I don't even like it, but I want to support it, so I'm going to buy it. This is the only sport where people say things like that. Find me any other business, any other entity, any other sport where people say things like, I don't even like this fight, but I want to support it because I want to support these fighters. There's no other sport where people do that. Only the diehards do that. Casuals don't even watch it for free, bro. It's not getting streamed at epic proportions. It just isn't. Mm-hmm. But guess what? NFL gets illegal to stream. But guess what? They still have. If you look at the top 100 rated shows on television, like 98 of them are NFL games. Okay, the Super Bowl still does 100 million homes. All right, basketball still does really good ratings. Really good. Baseball's ratings are falling. Are you going to blame people that pirate the games? No, it's because people are losing interest in baseball. Baseball has its own issues, right? But they're losing interest in baseball, right? Right now, boxing is in a place where people are losing interest in it, okay? We need to find a way to grow the popularity of the sport. We need to find a way for our neighbor to ask us, hey, I heard about so-and-so. I heard about this fight. or our neighbor to tell us, or our coworker to tell us, hey, I saw this fight on whatever, and the Zone app, it was a great fight. You know what I mean? We need the sport to grow. And how is it going to grow? By giving people a good product. How is it going to grow? By giving people the fights they fucking want. That's how it's going to grow. When you change the perception that this sport never gives people what they want. Forget whether that's true or not. That's the perception. Callie, is that not what your friends tell you?
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what do your friends say about boxing? That's perception. What is boxing going to do to change that? You got to do it more than one time. You got to do it consistently, like all the other fucking sports do. Boxing, that sport where they finally give us what we want in one fight, and then they're like, "See, and you want to say that we never give you what you want? Give me a fucking break, bro." It's like that abusive husband. He's beating up his wife and shit, right? He goes 1 week without hitting her. See, honey, I told you I love you. I didn't hit you one time last week. You always complain about I hit you. Like that. That's boxing, bro.
Yeah.
Right? We're the battered wives, so sticking around. Okay, we're getting beat up. We're paying for fights we don't even fucking want, and we're expected to pay for them, right? No, buy the horrible fights so that way you could earn the good fights. What type of a stupid, like, in no other business would this happen, bro? I'm sorry. Right? If I go to Walmart and I'm like, yo, where's the steak at? No, well, you got to buy the pork first. Buy the pork, and if you buy the pork enough times, then we'll sell you the steak that you want.
While we marinate the steak, right?
And we're marinating the steak for you right now. Okay, why would I sell you the steak? Okay, right now, when I could marinate it, have you buy my pork that you don't want, right? And then once you buy it enough times, we'll sell you that we'll sell it to you. That's what they sound like, bro. I'm sorry. Like I gave you the Slurpee analogy the other time. If I go to 7-Eleven and say that's $17 for a Slurpee, I ain't paying no fucking $17 for no Slurpee.
Why you broke though?
Oh, well, you broke? Oh, you broke, boy? Huh? You don't got no money? You're broke or what? Like, get the fuck out of here. All right? That's all I got to say about that.
The reason that this, and I got sent a couple clips this morning. One of them was Ryan, and I'll talk about that another time because Ryan was on Valuetainment, and I'll talk about that probably tomorrow. Whining and gnashing his teeth about the whole tank saga that he created, by the way. But the reason that this one bothers me is my pet peeve is people complaining about situations that they created and why they can't navigate situations that they created. I don't like seeing someone who is a poster boy for the current market, one of the poster boys, one of the many problems. There are many faces to this, and he's one of them. Of how we dwindled this market down to what they say 200K hardcore boxing fans in America, which is hard to believe, especially if you're older. It's hard to believe that there are only 200K, 200,000 hardcore boxing fans in the whole country, a country as big as this, compared to where we were decades ago. It's a sad state, and it continues to dwindle. But I hate to see people who are responsible for this now complaining about how they can't navigate this market and how they now have to think outside the box in order to sell pay-per-views. It irks me. It bothers the hell out of me. And on top of that, I also know what they're doing when they're saying, I'm going to take these 200K for granted because I know they're going to buy whatever.
Yeah.
It shows me once again that they don't get it because let's say 5 years ago, you had 300K that you can sell to you can sell them anything and they'll continue to buy it, except you don't notice that 100K walked out the door. They're gone.
You're not creating,
you can sell them?
You're
what
not
do you mean you
return,
can sell them anything?
You're not creating return customers.
It's not only that, but you're not noticing that you can't take that market for granted. You can't take 200K for granted because if you continue to do what you're doing, 10 years from now, that number is going to be down to 150K. And you're going to be doing the same thing, chasing your tail and saying, well, I can take that 150K for granted because they're going to buy anything. You were saying that about 200K 10 years ago. What happened to the other 50K that walked out the door because they knew they were being taken for granted? It bothers the hell out of me,
I
man.
think 200K is probably less than, I think it's less than that. But
Could be.
I live in El Paso. I have a couple of people that watch boxing, bro.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying I know everybody in the city, but that's just the reality. Like I'm just saying.
And there's
Um,
positive things going on, and I think it's going to get worse, like you said, before it gets better, because that's what happens in a reset. And I'm hoping that it's a harder reset than a softer reset, and if so, it'll be painful. In the meantime, especially for mid to low level fighters, and we don't mean to be negative because we'll talk about fights and positivity. But you need to understand the market you're in and why you're going to see some of the things you're seeing. And I want to say this too: is the people who are complain about the fire stick and the stealing, they're not learning. There are people who have been successful in these markets where their stuff is getting stolen. And I always bring up 50 Cent as the example because he was the main one talking about this early on. He said, I don't care. I want them to
well,
hack my
I'll
music
say this. I'll say this.
so I can sell them other stuff that's harder to steal. And that's
I,
what the NBA does, D style. The NBA is selling jerseys and all kind of stuff. It doesn't
I
matter if they're
get it.
being hacked.
I get it, but I'm not going to advocate for stealing. I'm just going to put that out there.
I'm not either. I'm just saying
But
it's gonna be around.
but 50 Cent is a name though. Like a lot of these boxers,
They would be names if they fought more.
they need to fight more. But I don't 100% agree with that 50 Cent analogy because if you give people a good fight constantly and a good product, they're going to buy it.
And that's what
We
he proved.
Yeah, like they will buy it anyway. Like they're not going to stream it all the time. Like they're going to buy
Exactly.
it. You got to give people a reason to buy things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, simple as that. Now, as far as General Allerby, look, like he ain't do shit, bro. He's just a dude holding fucking Floyd's ankles when he does sit-ups, bro. What the fuck is he doing?
He
Like
mastered.
I
You don't
mastered.
understand.
He didn't do shit, bro.
He
Like simple
mastered.
as
What are you
shit.
talking about? He mastered the pay per view market.
Get the fuck out of here. That dude. Like I never seen it. Like this boxing business, this boxing world is filled with people that over exaggerate their little stupid accomplishments, bro. It's fucking sad, bro. Okay, walking around saying things. The whole thing, it's just dumb, bro. Like everybody knows Leonard isn't the mastermind behind the pay per views. Like it's the dumbest thing I ever heard, bro. Honestly, like I don't know. It's whatever to me. But I will say this: you need to give people a good, consistent product, right? And the one thing that boxing is battling right now, it's the perception that it has. Here's the perception of boxing, and it's going to hurt a lot of feelings. But this, I don't even agree with this, but this is the perception. The sport is a joke. That's how people look at it, right? They're like, "Oh, that sport's a joke, bro." Like the shit. Like people don't respect the sport like that. What
Mhm.
is boxing going to do to gain respect back? Right? Change perception, right? And have people not say things like it's a joke, right? What does the sport of boxing need to do to get away from that? That is what's important here, okay? And whatever they want to take the diehards for granted, that's on them because once they're all gone, you got nothing to work with, bro. Got no foundation.
No.
You need that, and look, this happens in every industry. I was listening to a wrestling podcast the other day, and the host was saying things like, "Wrestling fans are the worst in the world," and wrestling fans, like, right? I listened to a Buffalo Bills podcast. Oh yeah, Buffalo Bill fans are the worst in the world, and whatever bubble people are in, there's always people in that bubble calling people in that bubble the worst, right? And they say things like, like no, nobody else would do this. Like you need to step out of the box, I guess, to kind of understand the landscape and what's going on around the world. Okay. And like outside of our boxing bubble. Okay. The problems with boxing can all be linked back to the fact that it's lost popularity and the perception of how people see it. What is boxing going to do to change that? In my opinion, consistency. How do you show consistency? You need activity for that. So we need to keep these guys active. We need more fighters that want to fight often, right? And that'll change the perception over time. It's going to be a long road back, right? We're not going to fix it with one big pay-per-view event. It's got to be a consistent basis. Can a sport of boxing do it? I'm not even sure, brother.
Yeah. The good news is its current existence will still provide entertainment for us. As we
Yeah.
see right now, like Liam Smith versus Oscar Valdez, that was announced officially, I think, today or yesterday. I love that fight. I love that fight. It's actually a fight that both of us may attend. Liam Smith versus Oscar Valdez in Phoenix. Love that fight. Love the placement of it, and I love that it's two guys coming off of losses, but it's a fight that makes sense. Two guys coming off of losses trying to get their
Crossroads.
traction back, and on top of
Well,
that,
Liam is he's on a 2-fight winning streak, but
oh, that's true. That's true. The last time he fought in a big fight, coming off of a loss, but you
yeah,
have two guys trying to get their footing back, and on top of that, I like to see. And shout out to Ring IQ. We've talked about this, but he brought it up last night on Twitter, and I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." I love this. I like to see fighters who were in tough and performed well in losses get rewarded with another fight.
mhm, yeah,
Liam Smith performed well in a loss to Navarrete, right? He's getting rewarded with another fight. Maxie Hughes fought Cambosos. Many of us feel like he won that fight clearly.
yeah.
Clearly, it is good performance, and he's being rewarded with a fight, right? He's being rewarded with another fight against William Zepeda. I like to see guys who perform well in losses um, step up fights. These are step up fights for these guys, or big fights. In Maxie Hughes's case, he was hosed in particular. You can argue that the referee didn't do what he was supposed to do against Navarrete versus Liam Wilson. I like to see these guys get rewarded with other big fights in the future, and that's what I like about this
And
fight.
I like to see,
Other than this is going to be fun fight.
and just for the record, I like the fact that our awesome brother is going to come over to Arizona.
Our mate,
Mate, he's going to be coming to Arizona, mate. You know what I'm saying? It's an Aussie. It's an Aussie takeover, mate.
it's an Aussie takeover, mate. Yeah, so you like the fight, right?
I love the fight. Love the fight and great co-main. And this is a lot of people are not going to want to hear this, but this is what the female fighters have to do. Put yourself on the undercards,
Yeah.
co-main of big fights like this, or you're fighting in front of a crowd. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of the female fighters in the U.S. especially, you have to be willing to fight on these undercards. Cenas Estrada's putting her any ego she may have. She's not doing the Clarissa Shield. I'm not going to fight on no undercard and like, or whatever. No, guess what? She's going to be
In the right market
Desert,
too.
Glendale, Arizona, right spot, crowd, right? I think the other girl's is she from Costa Rica? I'm not even sure. But Valle and her, they're both unified champions. It's a good fight for them. Perfect, right? And I know what people are going to do. I already saw some of it. Stop with the it should be the main event. It's for undisputed. Valdez coming off a loss. Well, why are they headlining? Because they're the ones that they're gonna bring the crowd, bro. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Put the ego to the side, right? And there's a lot of female fighters that can get fights in the US. Put your egos to the side. I'm not saying this is what it is, but Shields is the only one I could point to, but like you got to be willing to do this. Katie Taylor was willing to do it, Calix. She would be on the undercard of other fighters, right? Joshua especially. It helped grow a profile. Guess what? Now she is headlining because she sells tickets. That's what determines if you're the headliner. If you could sell the tickets, not your accomplishment, not how big you think the fight is, the ticket selling, right? But if you could put yourself in this position, this is going to help women's boxing. Christy Martin became a big name by being on undercards of Mike Tyson fights. It is what it is, bro. If she was like, no, I'm not going to be on no undercard of no Mike Tyson, then nobody will know who the fuck she was. That's just the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I are you picking Liam to win this fight, by the way?
I don't know, man. I got to
That's
think
gonna
about
be a
that
tough one. And I'll
fight.
tell you this though. Oscar Valdez, win or lose, I love how that guy fights. I was surprised.
He's a tough bloke. He's a tough bloke, mate.
I'm a Navarrete fan. I picked him to lose that fight against Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez really sits on those punches and throws those hooks. Yeah, he couldn't get it going against Navarrete, but I'll tell you what, that guy is fun, and this is gonna be a fun match. This is great matchmaking right
There's
here.
one thing I'll tell you, mate. He's a tough bloke, mate. He's a tough bloke. Those two blokes are tough, mate.
Those two blokes are tough. Any final thoughts, D Style?
Look, I think whatever I said it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Put your X's up and hit the like button before you go out, guys.
And by the way, the roundtable is back on your channel tomorrow night.
Yes,
correct?
yes, tomorrow roundtable for sure.
6
Tune in.
o'clock, faux show. I'm sure some more news will break by then, and we'll talk
Yes,
some
sir.
other stuff. So see y'all tomorrow. God bless. Peace.